What is going on? No horsing around. Family, Zach Boyd back at it again. Going to talk all thing Colts football, all thing related. Past the trade deadline, kind of we are what we are at this point. Thought it'd be cool to have friend of the show, George Bremer, on. George, how you been, man?
Doing well. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well myself. Been a little bit of this year for us, you know. I mean, everybody in the loop and everything. But George, just kind of your thoughts. We're pretty much halfway point through the season. I think at this point, is it fair to say we are who we are at that point? Just kind of your initial thoughts on state of where the Colts are right now as we speak on a Thursday, preparing to play against the New England Patriots this Sunday.
Yeah, I think definitely fair to say they are who they are. I think the frustrating thing about this year is that you've got a defense that's been pretty much as advertised, and maybe even a little bit better than expected considering how long they've had to play without Shaq Leonard, who's been their best player for the past 4 or 5 years. That obviously you'd like to see a few more turnovers. I mean, I think that's the one thing on that side of the ball that they would like to do, but they've kind of picked that up the last couple of weeks. They've got a couple more takeaways. They're starting to round out on that side of the ball, but the offense has been so far below expectations that it's kind of ruined everything else. And then there's just been such a self-destructive quality to this team. I mean, the 16 turnovers speak for themselves, but also just untimely penalties, other types of mental mistakes or things that put you back. I mean, just going back to the most recent game on Sunday, they give up 2 drives that total 171 yards to lose the lead against the Commanders. And then you have a chance after all of that to get back in the game, and Michael Pittman Jr. drops the ball at midfield that, if he catches it, at worst, he's going to be on the outskirts of field goal range with a chance to get another completion or two and send Chase McLaughlin out there with a chance to win the game. All sorts of mistakes, big ones, little ones, hidden yardage, obvious stats that just have been killing this football team.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. And I said last night on the live stream, George, probably the best throw of the game for Sam Ehlinger didn't get caught. I mean that's a big boy, big time throw. I don't care who the hell your name is. When you're throwing that pass in that situation, that's as good as it gets, man. I mean, that is as good as it gets when you throw that ball. I'm not going to pile on Michael Pittman Jr. I think he's been incredibly reliable this year, but that's a ball. If you want to go from being just a number one to the number one, I think you got to catch those footballs. I think of, Tyreek Hill and Devontae Adams and, a lot of these young guys, Justin Jefferson. I feel like they catch those footballs, and that's what separates them in some of those big moments with those big plays. Speaking of that, Sam Ehlinger, 1 weekend, not a huge sample size. Thought he rebounded nicely from kind of the silly turnover that he had early in the game. Just initial thoughts just on Sam Ehlinger. Just interested in your thoughts on that, George.
Yeah, I think they did a good job of game planning for him. Didn't ask too much of him. Obviously tried to lean on the running game, tried to get creative in the running game. I think we saw some jet sweeps. We had at least one wildcat formation out there. They try to do some things with the RPO game to get that going. I think overall they did a good job of kind of using what's a limited skill set from him and what's going to be a limited offense moving forward and putting themselves in a chance to win the game. I think Sam did what he needed to do in terms of not putting the ball in harm's way. I think they got, honestly, just about everything they said they wanted out of his start. I mean, he picked up a couple first downs on the ground with his legs. He got some explosive plays into the offense. I think they have 5 plays of 20 yards or more, which is by far the most this year that they've had in a game. And then they were able to pick up the run game, as we said a little bit. They still need to get better. They averaged 4.7 yards a carry, but I think some of that was smoke and mirrors. Two plays totaled for 55 of those yards. You take those 2 away, it was barely 3 yards a carry on the other 27 attempts. So they still got to get better in the running game. That goes back to the offensive line. I think we all know where the issues are there. I don't think you could ask much more of Sam at this point. 6th round pick making his first start. I thought he did what you could expect. He's not going to go out there and throw for 400 yards or throw 50 times a game. I thought he did everything they asked of him. And like I said, his best throw of the game was there at the end, and it unfortunately wasn't caught.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. I mean, for me, Sam, where I'm at with him, George, is he proved to me he can play in the NFL. Now, I don't know what capacity that is. Maybe he's a high-level backup, definitely not to a point where you can say, hey, here's the keys to the kingdom. You are the franchise quarterback. Need to see some special plays when it comes to that. George, as a content creator, we only get about 4 times a year where we're able to have media availability, right? But I've kind of looked at the progression of Frank Reich in the moments that we've had that opportunity, and it's what you don't hear and what you see. He is visibly this season to me looks like it has really worn on him up here more than anything. Are you getting the same sense when you're in there? Because I know you're there on a daily basis. Are you feeling the same kind of feel from Frank Reich?
Yeah, really the whole franchise, but Frank in particular. I mean, he's been around a long time. He played in this league for 14 years, been around it for far longer than that. He knows how these stories end. He understands when you're a head coach and your expertise is offense, and your offense is ranked 30th in the league, and you continue to try everything, to turn this around. They've changed offensive line combinations 15 times. I mean, it feels like you went to a no huddle for a couple of weeks. You changed quarterbacks. Now we're going to see, the firing of the offense coordinator. Nothing's worked. I mean, at the end of the day, like I just said, I think they got everything they wanted from Sam Ehlinger in terms of what they talked about during the week. And you still scored 16 points, which coming into the game, you were averaging 16.1, and you turned the ball over twice, which you're averaging 2 turnovers a game. So, even with best case scenario from the quarterback change, nothing changed for the offense. And I think that's the frustrating thing. If you Frank Reich, you keep trying new things. Again, the running game had some new wrinkles this week. They've done lots of different things in the passing game over the previous 7. And it just feels like no matter what they do, you're still in the same boat. You can't get to 20 points and you can't protect the football.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a locker room divided too. I think some of the players are just, okay with how things are going, and the others they were not for Matt Ryan, kind of, abruptly getting taken out of that starting lineup. You feel that a little bit? Because that's not a normal Colts thing that we've dealt with in the last 5 years. But are you feeling that just being in that locker room around those guys?
Yeah, I don't think it's a massive thing that there's a lot of tension, but there's no doubt. I don't think there's 53 guys tugging on the same rope right now. There's a lot of different feelings in that room for a lot of different reasons. There's people that don't think the quarterback should have been benched. There's people that don't think that Marcus Brady should have been fired. There's people that don't think Nyheim Hines should have been traded. And there's other people that are just frustrated with, I think pretty much all of them. If there's one thing they're all feeling, they're frustrated with the way this year's gone. I mean, you could pretty much to a man, in the preseason talk to these guys, and all of them thought this was going to be a special season. They were expecting to win the AFC South. They were expecting to be a factor in the playoff race. And right now, mathematically, they're still in it at 3-4-1. In the 2-game win streak, you'd be right back in the middle of things as far as the wild card race goes. But realistically, it feels like they couldn't be further from those goals. And I think, you now have veterans trying to, hey, what's going on here? Whether or not they're being absolutely vocal about it or toxic or anything like that, I don't think it's gotten to that point. But it's human nature. I mean, you get any group of people together in any job, and you have things go, less than they were expected, and then on top of that you have a couple of unexpected changes, same as any other workplace right now.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. Marcus Brady, I'm just kind of blah on that move. I don't know that what it really does necessarily. Maybe it does something. Hell, I don't know. I'm not in that building every single day. I don't know the process of which they build game scripts and do all of that stuff. Feels a little scapegoatish, it feels just a little bit like that. Do you feel like, when this season's over, obviously, Irsay went out, and talked to Mortensen and had that, emphatic, absolutely not. I'm not thinking about moving on from this regime. A lot can change in 10 weeks in the NFL. And I think, George, we've been around just watching football as fans long enough to know almost a thing like when you get that endorsement from that owner, the next thing you know, 2 or 3 weeks later, you get the axe. So I don't think that we should buy into that all the way.
No, yeah, the first thing I thought was the dreaded vote of confidence. I mean,
Yeah.
it just feels like every time, like you said, every time that happens, it ends up going the other way. I think part of that was Irsay's firm belief that Sam Ehlinger is going to be a difference maker for this team. And part of that was saying, I think when he said that at 3-3-1, he was expecting them to turn things around and get things going. And maybe they still do. There's still plenty of time left. I think that's one of the things that it's hard to kind of look at that right now. But you mentioned 10 weeks remaining, 9 games left in this season. If they can go, say, 6-3 over that stretch, maybe they can get a playoff berth. At this point, it feels like 9-7-1 probably would be good enough to get in the AFC the way things are rolling right now. Of course, things have changed for a lot of other teams too. But short of that, short of them making the playoffs, is it a total house cleaning at the end of the year? A lot of that probably depends on how bad things get over the next 10 weeks. But I think even if they're 7-9-1 or 8-8-1 and they're on the outside looking in, there's at least going to be some long conversations in there. In fact, the matter is, just like we just talked about a minute ago, you're looking at a team with an offensive-minded head coach whose offense is 30th in the league right now. And, whether I can sit here and argue all day that Frank Reich really hasn't had a chance to settle in, 5 years and 6 starting quarterbacks. And there's a lot of things that have gone against him that I think people don't really give him credit for what he's fought through. But it doesn't matter. The NFL is not about fairness. It's not about, nobody cares about the excuses. Nobody cares what happened to you. It's a bottom line results driven business. And the way last year ended and the way this year's gone so far, I don't think there's any doubt he's on the hot seat. Again, plenty of time to turn that around, but things go the way they're going right now. It's more likely than not there'd be a coaching change at the end of the year.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. It's kind of what have you done for me lately, Lee? When you look at that, it's going to be a lot of roller coaster ride, as we talked before we got on. I tell you what, when you think about the Patriots and you think about Belichick, one thing about him, he's the rookie killer, the quote unquote rookie killer. I don't know if Sam's not quite a rookie second year, but he's getting his second start. That's a dangerous moment for Sam. But also, I thought about this too, George. It's an amazing opportunity, right? Like, it's an opportunity for this kid to come out and say, "Oh, wow, okay, I didn't see that coming," from him. Get the sense from Sam, though, the moment's not too big for him. He wants to be in this situation. He doesn't have this timidness. Just thoughts before we get off here. New England, they're going to throw everything at the kitchen sink at Sam. And how do you expect him to respond going down there to Foxborough?
Yeah, he's got everything off the field you want. His intangibles are off the charts. Natural leader. He's highly intelligent. Knows the playbook probably better than some of the coaches.
Yeah.
He's incredible with that sort of thing. Certainly not going to be intimidated about this situation. But there's no doubt. When you look at what Bill Belichick's done over the course of his career, his ability to mix coverages, and not just that, just things that he shows you on Sunday that weren't on any game film. Something that's specific to this week and this team and the personnel that they have. I think that's one of the reasons it's so hard for a rookie, because you're used to going in there and looking at the X's and O's and, okay, if this guy lines up here and that guy lines up there, that means they're in this look. And that means I've got to go to this spot. And, that's the way the NFL works, unless you're playing Bill Belichick, in which case all of that goes out the window. And even during the game, something they show you in the first quarter might not be the same thing they show you in the fourth quarter, and neither of those looks that you've seen at any other point in the season. I think when Chicago, really lit them up a couple of weeks ago, a lot of that was in the running game. Justin Fields made some plays with his arm, but a lot of that was, their running backs doing the job, and Fields getting a lot of yards on the ground. So I think one of the biggest keys for Sam Ehlinger on Sunday would be if he's got a healthy Jonathan Taylor. And right now, that's questionable. Even if he plays, he's not going to be at 100%. I think that's what they need. Last year, Jonathan Taylor won this game almost single-handedly. The defense did its job, and Taylor rushed for 170-some yards and had that game-clinching touchdown. That's probably going to be one of those memories the people that were there will never forget. I think the ground game is the key because, again, he's going to throw so many different looks. And not that Sam can't handle that. I think he's a highly intelligent guy. But you're talking about, Belichick's one of those guys that you think you know the answers and he changes the questions.
Yeah, exactly. One thing about it is he's notorious for if you're bad at something, he is going to expose you 100%. I said a couple keys to the game. Belichick watches that film probably better than any coach in the NFL. He knows there's an opportunity to really smash the football, especially on those counter plays. I expect them to really get the run game going, as well as he knows we got offensive line problems. So he's going to make that a nightmare for Sam. So he's definitely going to have to use his legs down there in Foxborough. Don't know what the weather is yet, but that should be an interesting game. Last question before we get off here. Shaq Leonard came back, played a few plays, had the interception, of course. You expect him to give it a go this Sunday, and you think that maybe there's a little bit of an uptick in play and usage?
Yeah, I think you'll see him now get more and more snaps as time goes on. It's going to take him a little while to get back into things. I think people were kind of upset because early in that game he didn't look like himself, but it's going to take a little bit. He missed the entire offseason. He's what now 9 weeks into practicing, 8 weeks into practicing. So he's about where he would be right now after a full training camp and in a spring, work. So I think you're going to see that come more and more as the weeks go. They always talk about you're in shape, but are you in football shape? And I think that's one of the things for him. But you've seen even with the other things that didn't go right on Sunday, he's still a ball magnet. He still found a way to get an interception that really should have changed that football game. So I think he'll continue to see that go up, see those snaps go up, and I expect him to continue to make splash plays. That's who he is. Whether it's another interception this week, whether he knocks a ball out for a fumble, whether he gets a sack, if he's on the field, one of those things is happening. It's almost guaranteed every game throughout his career.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Guy played on one ankle last year, and look what he did. He just mentioned he's just an incredible where the ball's at. 53 is right around there. He's always going to be close. Should be interesting. Big-time opponent as we've got this weekend. We'll see how Sam does and how Sam responds. George, as always, thank you so much, my friend, for coming on the podcast, and we will see you down the road.
No problem, man. Anytime.